Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and padawans. You are listening to EternalJourney, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and this is episode 77 of the podcast, where this week we are honored to have our guest, the host and co-host, or double host, or both co-host things from the Misplay podcast. That's right, this is the Misplay origin story, and we're going to go deep diving into it. But first, I want to welcome my good friends on the show, starting with Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
And John.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Just for plugging purposes, remember they are John Julio and Darth_Herman2 in games. So whenever you guys play them, you can friend them and let them know what a great job they're doing putting up with me. You can catch us all live at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ or previously recorded and edited for your viewing pleasure on youtube.com/EternalJourney. Of course, every week on the show, we like to give some shout outs to people that have been contributing to the show and subbing to the channel and all that good stuff. So shout out to Marvin the Imp with the 3-month sub coming from team captain of Team Not Tavrod, one of the older teams in the game, and also starting to do the weekly tournaments at your own leisure on their Discord, so check them out. Fellow streamer and guest of the show and top drafter Better Up for gifting 10 subs to the YouTube or Twitch channel this month or week. Sorry, thank you very much, Better Up. Really do appreciate it. You guys should definitely check him out. And then Lokaiza for the 6-month sub streak that earned his Darth Maul lightsaber. And of course, an ongoing appreciation and love and thank you to all those that week in and month out contribute to the show and sub to the channel. Really do appreciate you all. One and all are fantastic. And to you, the listeners that are watching / listening to this podcast right now, thank you guys so much for everything you do. With that out of the way, it is time for our Pack 1 Pick 1 action. Alex, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, you're going to have a little time to warm up because I'm going to start off with John today.
Haha.
Nice change up.
Boom, boom, boom. Try to keep it fresh. All right, we're going to go through this pack. We have, at the common slot, we have Reflection. Not going to worry about that. Siphoner Paladin, the 1/5 Paladin for 3 Justice. Summon. You may sacrifice another unit to play a 3/3 relic weapon, or give your current relic weapon a +3/+3. Valley Clan Sage, not going to talk about it. Valiant Leap is a fast spell for 2 Primal. Revenge, give one of your units flying and overwhelm this turn. If you have double Justice Influence, it also gets +2/+2 this turn. Roland's Enforcer, the 1/5 Ambush Soldier for 5 Shadow. When you play another card on the enemy turn, Roland's Enforcer gets a +3 attack. Sand Tornado is a 2/3 Elemental for 3 time Ambush, flying on the enemy's turn. Flameheart Patroller is a 1/3 Sentinel for 2 fire. Surge, +2 attack this turn. And finally, Corrosive Dagger is a +1/+1 weapon for 3 fire. Has decay. And then summon, play a 1/1 Rustling with decay for every double fire influence you have. John, what are you looking at out of these commons?
I think, there's some pretty good comments here. Siphoner Paladin is one of the best. And then I think the 2 fire commons there, the Flameheart Patrol and the Corrosive Daggers are runner-up for me. But I think I'm looking at the Siphoner Paladin as the top common here.
Okay, yeah, I can get behind that. I think it's the safest pick out of all the payoffs because for the most part, the other ones require additional resources versus Paladin. You could just run it in just about every Justice deck. At the uncommon slot, we have Sky Serpent, a 3/3 Flying Serpent for 2 triple Primal. Rust Machine, a 3/2 Grenadin for 3 fire. When you play a spell with cost 5 or more, play 2 1/1 Rustlings with Decay. Ultimate, pay 4 to get +5 power this turn. And finally, Trickshot Ruffian is a 1/2 gunslinger for 1 justice. Summon, you may give another unit plus attack plus health this turn equal to your justice influence. Alex, which one of these do you like? Or and do either any of these supersede the Siphoner Paladin?
Yeah, probably by a little bit. So the limited success I've had in this format has involved Primal, so I do like Sky Serpent a lot. The Trickshot Ruffian is a card that you can do some fun stuff with Imbue, and you can do some fun stuff with that card. But for me, I think Rust Machine is the best uncommon. It's the easiest to cast. The payoff is not that hard to pull off. You can keep doing the payoff, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, I like it, and I think it probably barely is better than the Siphoner Paladin, which I like a lot as well. This is a pretty good pack.
Yeah, this is absolutely absurd. John, any of the uncommons for you?
Yeah. um, exactly what Alex said, but I'm like, at this point in this draft format, I'm like even a little higher on Sky Serpent in general, just because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Primal seems to be open a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
So that kind of like pick, pick one like is a risky thing no matter what, because I find in this format it's so important just to be in an open lane, that like, what are the chances any one of these cards is even going to make the final deck? Well, like it's not really, it's up to that, right? It's not like up to really what I'm picking here. So like that, I think the highest chances of Primal, because of the format, like I think the Sky Serpent is like looking a little more appealing to me even than the Rust Machine. Like if I was leaning to my favorite faction, it might even just be the Siphoner Paladin. Like I think overall, I think Justice is the most power available. But again, if it's not open, you're just gonna have a bad deck. So I don't know. It's probably between Serpent and Rust Machine for me.
And I have to agree with you, honestly. I even in my recent streams, I felt like I've been Huru a lot, but honestly, it's just Primal is just open. Like no one is taking Primal. Very rarely, especially now. I don't know if people are just locking into that big Praxis deck. I found myself very like I can't remember the last time I've drafted Fire, to be completely honest with you, and I feel like I go up against a decent amount of Fire opponents. So I don't know if people are just on the Corrosive Dagger plan or if Rakano in general, but I'm still getting past Prime or Justice as well. Some late Justice picks that I think are pretty good too. So I'm not really sure. It's very interesting for sure. All right, we have a rare that is. I got a chance to play with her, and she was okay for me, but I have seen her do some work as well. I don't think she's a Windmill Slam Bomb, but she does have some serious power to her, and there's some additional synergies depending on how you build your deck. We have Genetrix, Irel, Wayward, yeah, whatever. Anyway, 3/4 Cleric for 2 power, and then triple time and single Justice Influence. Players can't discard cards. Surge, the next unit you play this turn gets a +1/+1. So obviously if you have a symbol that you play, or if you're lucky enough to have, what is it, the banners, the seats, what's the 2-color?
Seats are in the format.
Seats, thank you. I always, for some reason, I can never remember between seats and banners ever. I don't know why. My brain just doesn't. Anywho, if you play one of those, then the next unit you play will get a +2/+2. The one thing of note specifically about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, is that it just says the next unit. So it's not like you can play Surge and then dump 3 units and they all get the buff. It's only going to do the next one. So that being said, let's go back to you, Alex. How do you feel about Genetrix? Is she going to take out the Sky Serpent or not?
no, I don't. I mean, I do like it a lot, and like you said, I've seen it go off, but it was in a deck that John brewed, and it was like a constructed crazy deck where I've seen it go off. If you just have one, you know, it's a good card. It's kind of if you have it in your deck, you don't really need to build around it because you're surging just when you play a power. So, but I don't think it's powerful enough for me to first pick it. I don't think. I like the uncommons better, I think.
Okay. John?
Yeah, my view is is a little tainted of her because of that. Like she was just popping off in this constructed deck. I'm like, oh yeah, she's good. But no, I think you're right, Alex. I think I mean look at last week's podcast. We first picked like a much better Combrade card, and like Combrade just wasn't open, and guess what? We couldn't play that in our deck, right? So, and I think like Maeve is on a whole nother level than Genetrix. So like I don't know that it's worth it. I don't think she's worth really warping your deck. And like I find that symbols and just dual lands in general in draft are not easy to come by. And so like you're not necessarily going to be able to like really build around her, even if Combrade's open. Like you just might not get ways to enable that much surge, although like Justice does have more ways to enable, like with badge and stuff, but she's like mostly a time card. So like first pick, no, I think it's still either Serpent or Rust Machine.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm on the same boat. I would probably lean a little bit towards Paladin just because I like everything that Justice offers, but like you guys said, because of the fact that Primal's open, and honestly, out of the 3 uncommons that are all powerful, the one that actually asks the least of you, in my opinion, is Sky Serpent, just because it just asks for additional influence, which you're perfectly fine playing this thing on 3 as well. And a 3/3 flyer is actually pretty darn good in this format. Versus Rust Machine, you do have to have a couple of 5-cost spells in your deck, and then Trickshot Ruffian wants you to be very heavy Justice. So I think going with the safest pick here, I would once again, Paladin's probably slightly safer, but yeah, I like Sky Serpent. I think especially if Primal's open, you can take a collection of these guys, then it's gonna be very hard pressed for your opponent to come back from that. So yeah, Sky Serpent is the pick for this one. All right, guys, now for our main topic, I want to welcome 2 very special and important guests, dear friends of mine, one of the first people to help me start really promoting this great content on, I use the term great loosely, on the Discords and Reddits and all the good stuff. I want to welcome the 2 hosts of the Misplay podcast, Jason.
Hello, and welcome to Eternal Journey, where I don't have to do the editing. I'm joined by my friend and co-host.
My name is Mark.
Hello,
Hi.
Jedi. We stole your intro.
Yeah, you know what? I bow down to greater podcasters. So you can't see it right now, but I'm totally bowing down.
If this was our podcast, I would edit that part out.
Oh yeah, you would. No, you would just bleep it out. Don't even go there. You would just bleep it out. I gotta admit though, you did such a great job of doing that. I was laughing so hard. You guys have had some really good moments on your podcast, for sure. For those of you, once again, that don't know, I do encourage you guys to check out the Misplay on, well, shoot, you guys want to plug all the places you're at right off the beginning. They're great podcasts. I listen to them all the time. They are for audiences of all ages, absolutely hilarious, and people that are just trying to get better at Eternal. So, Jason, I think you'll kind of give me the runaround. Mark, do you want to tell me all the places where people can find your podcast at?
I hope I don't mess it up. Apple, iTunes. See, that's the same thing. Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Twitter at The Misplay. And you can find us at themisplay.com, where you can also find links to the show and all other content that we create.
We have a MySpace too.
Oh,
Defunct
nice.
as usual.
No, we don't.
Oh, all right. Well, I was just kidding about mine as well. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm about to check mine. See what cool music I have in the background.
Oh no.
All right. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. You guys are known for your punctuality and for being precise and to the point during yours, so I want to keep that same respect of your time on this one. So first off, you guys are a dynamic duo. Wherever you find one, you find the other, except occasionally you'll find Mark in the top 50 and
this hurts.
or Jason in the day 2s. So I guess in those places you guys vary a little bit, but Lo and behold, for as long as you guys still remain friends, how did you two meet and how long have you guys been friends?
Craigslist, casual encounters. Mark, you want to tell the story?
So once upon a time, Jason and I worked at the same school in different jobs. And then it feels really weird telling the story here. But anyway, we were friends, or we weren't friends, but we worked at the same school. And then we happened to run into each other. There was a Magic the Gathering cards club at our school. And then we both happened to run into each other at the local card shop. And after we ran into each other there, it was then decided we could be friends.
So
Yeah, Mark was just like, I don't know, like an acquaintance. I'm not even sure I knew his name the first time I came across you in the card shop. But I was like, oh, there's that guy from work.
Well, I was gonna say we never talked at work.
Never. So, I to answer your question, Jedi, we just kind of like realized we had, some commonalities. It's so strange. This is the first time I've been on someone else's podcast.
Oh, really?
I guested once for Farming Eternal a long time ago.
Ooh, guys, we don't talk about Farming Eternal here.
Yuck.
Is your work close enough to farming, Jason, that you are now a farmer?
Oh, I might actually be a farmer at this point. Yeah. I've been landscaping my backyard with Mark. He's been helping during COVID here.
What's the end goal of said landscaping?
We've already put in AstroTurf when we built a retaining wall, and now we're putting down a patio. And then we're going to conclude it with a garden.
Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
True friendships are forged in landscaping.
Yeah, I think it's actually really, and that kind of leads into, I know this isn't my podcast, but this leads into, Mark has always said the reason he's done the podcast is what, Mark?
I looked at it as an excuse to spend time with a friend.
Right? That's like super sweet. Like he's always kind of approached it that way. He's been a really great friend.
Man, you know what? We 100% agree. Well, I agree with you. Alex and John probably think otherwise. They're like, it's podcast day. But I'm all like, man, I get to kick it with my homeboys. Life is good. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I had to go on vacation 2 weeks ago and we recorded an extra podcast the week before to stay on schedule. And like, man, I'm not gonna lie. I got back. I was like, I missed you guys. And they're like, yeah, us too. Yeah.
That's not true. We missed you too. We told you that. So don't act like we didn't miss you.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Look at it as hanging out with my friend as well. So I can relate with Mark big time on that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I wish I can be like, yeah, Mark, that's the same reason I do it too. I just like cool tech toys. I wanted to learn how to podcast.
Nice.
And
yeah,
you're pretty good at it, my friend.
Thank you.
So actually,
just wait till you see Jason's backyard. Anything he's like, I want to learn how to do this. He like goes above and beyond just learning.
I believe it.
So even though you gave me a great segue for question number 2, there was a question I wanted to ask. What kind of garden are you putting in? Is it just a pretty flower garden? Is it for veggies and fruits and all that? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so it's going to be pretty functional. There'll be some, fruits and veggies and, things like mint, maybe some lemon verbena, things that we can use, with things that we're, cooking or drinking in the house.
Well, according to people from another podcast that apparently we are not going to mention, I have learned that you should probably prep spinach for the winter. So take that for what it's worth.
I tell you what, if they actually talked about farming, I would listen to that podcast.
With that, let's use that segue. You guys started a podcast, the Misplay podcast. We've talked about a couple times already. I've mentioned it on the show several times. You guys are fantastic. I've been a guest on the show. What got the ball rolling to create a podcast? Because it is essentially, I mean, to do it right, there has to be a commitment, right? It's not one of those things like, we'll kind of do it when we want, see what happens. And when you did decide on doing the podcast, was that part of a bigger plan, or was it just the first step, or you're like, hey, this is what we're gonna do, let's see if the shoe fits?
Jason came to me one day and was like, hey, I've got this idea, come see me after work and let's talk for a minute. And so he pitched the idea of a podcast. And it was just a podcast at the time. and this is reflective of the way that Jason does things. So we started with the podcast, and he's like, "Oh, we have to do more. Like, we need to stream." And then we started streaming a little bit, and then there was the team, or in some order. But like it everything else did kind of grow from that. And I think that's just reflective of the way that that Jason builds things. It starts with something small, and it tends to spiral out to be a larger organism than what it started as.
But you guys immediately knew you were going to do a podcast about Eternal, right?
I'm trying to remember. I know that I wanted to do a podcast and Mark played Eternal. I didn't play it as much as Mark did at the time. And I still don't play as much as Mark did. And for me, it was more, I want to do a podcast. It could have been another topic. It could have been another game. And I probably would have been okay with it. Mark, maybe. But Eternal was something that he was playing heavily. And it was a game I had played, kind of on and off. So there was some interest there for me. So we had decided on Eternal pretty early in the decision making. But to answer your question, Jedi, I was always thinking there would be more. I've always been drawn to I've tried streaming, and if I could do it more, I would. It just doesn't match with my life at the moment. I've always been kind of like drawn to that. There's been other podcasts and content creators that I've liked in other games and other spaces, and I've always thought, oh, maybe I could do that. And so when we set out to build the podcast, I did keep an open mind, knowing that I would want to stream one day. I would like to create a team in the future. How can I make the team interesting? So even before we were doing those things, I was thinking about those things.
That's really impressive just to have that long-term goal in mind and kind of see step one, step two. You hit those intermittent goals, and as you accomplish, okay, cool, we're at 80% of this goal. Let's start working on the next one. That's really impressive. And I understand that because you can ask John and Alex. My brain is constantly going, thinking of a million things. Like we probably accomplish about 40% of the stuff I pitch to them. And then sometimes they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Sometimes they're like, whoa, Jedi, settle down now. And, you got to be real about the time commitment. You mentioned that. And it's true. It's true. To create any level of content on a regular basis is definitely something that takes a huge commitment, both in just intellect and time. So you guys, we're going to get into the team in a minute because that's one of the other reasons I want to have you on the show. But the structure, you guys have such good structure on your show, and you're very precise. Once again, you get to the point, and it's great. You guys created I love the games that you do, Jason. I think it's a great way to add some spice to it and annoy Mark. How did that, was that kind of a trial by fire? Did you guys kind of build it up as you went, or did you have an idea? Did you game plan before even episode 1?
When we sat down to, kind of mock out and what the podcast was going to look like, we knew, or at least I knew, that I wanted it to be part entertaining and then part, educational, helpful to people that listen to us about the game. And so it was always really important to me that we build in things that are entertaining, that are fun, whether those be the games or just Mark can't possibly disagree, the different segments. And then Mark usually took charge of Act 2 in terms of like crafting, how he was going to frame ways for people to improve at the game. And being consistent was also something that we roadmapped from the beginning. We said, we're always going to release on Tuesday. And at the time, we looked at all the other podcasts that were out there, and we tried to pick a day that nobody else was releasing on. And we said, we're always going to do Tuesday. We scaled back. Initially, we started at once a week. And then we realized that really wasn't sustainable. And then we shifted to every other week, but always Tuesday.
Nice. Yeah. And I believe it. I believe there's always people like, wait a minute, where's my morning podcast download? So,
I don't think for the Eternal space, it was necessarily important that we always release on Tuesday. If we released on Wednesday, like, I don't think like anyone's like, no one's going to write me an email like, dude, where's your podcast? But it was like, just saying, I'm going to do this. And if it means I have to stay up all night on Monday, so I release on time, I'm going to do that.
That's what I do when I edit.
It works both ways, right? Being on a schedule helps your audience know and build that habit, but it also gets you locked into a rhythm so you're able to stay on it. Case in point for us, we know every Wednesday we're going to keep Wednesday free. We're going to prep and we're going to record that night. And it just gets you in the right mind state to consistently put out the content. And, you know, it gives you a little bit of a buffer too. For a while there, we were recording a week in advance. So we were technically a week behind, but it guaranteed us to always be on time. And then come to find out, the way that Direwolf releases content and information, things change, that just wasn't really feasible for us to stay up to date. And then we end up dropping down to where we record that Wednesday and it comes out that Friday, just to, you know, be up to date on things. One last thing I want to touch on with the podcast. One of the first things that started to put you guys on the Eternal scene, so to speak, is that you chose to do an Eternal survey, trying to break down the word escapes me now, but the archetypes, so for lack of a better term, of the people that play Eternal, and kind of get some feedback that you guys then processed and put back out to the community. What motivated you guys to do this, and then how did you feel about the results? And we'll start off with you, Mark.
This is another Jason brainchild, but it was originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was originally like market research. We wanted to see, we'd kind of hit a point where our viewership or audience was kind of at a consistent size, and we were curious about what the larger community looked like to see if/why our audience wasn't growing.
Jason, how did you feel about those results?
About the results, I was really happy with the number of people that took their time to respond to that survey. I mean, at the time, you know, we only had like 100 listeners, but you know, nearly 500 people filled out that survey. So I was really happy with the results there. You know, one of the reasons that we did that was as a podcast, and I'm sure you guys think the same way. And you know, I hate to give that podcast, which should not be named, any credit, but they've done something that, you know, I think we've kind of struggled to do in terms of like, how do we add value to the community? How do we create something that like people are like, oh yeah, we need to do this because it really helps me. Like the 7-win deck list and the breakdown that they do, like adds a lot of value to the community. And so I thought a survey, you know, might do something similar. It's not a recurring thing. It's not a thing you do every week, but it's something that kind of gives back to the community that we can share. And so that was kind of the idea behind it, for wanting to do it.
Nice. No, I think it was a very insightful tool, and I love listening to your results podcast, how you guys broke it down with Sunnyvale, and I think it was great. And that's probably why you saw such a great participation number in that, is just because it was something that everyone was interested in, so the community came together for. So thanks again for you guys doing that.
Well, there were a lot of names that were helpful and involved in that. I know the folks over at Eternal Warcry put us up on the banner, so we had more exposure to a lot more people than we usually do. So that was a huge help.
Yeah, Stever Cakes is absolutely amazing, as well as Papa Capricorn over on Shiftstone. I think those two guys managing those websites is one of the hidden gems of Eternal for sure. There's so few resources out there for extra Eternal content when you look at the bigger picture of things, that having dedicated websites like that out of 100% out of their own free time and love is really appreciated, much like what you guys do. The one thing I will say is, what was a little disappointing about the survey is that we found out that 23%, 18% of the community actually drafts at the time. I think that number has gone up, thankfully, but yeah, that completely explained why Limited didn't receive the kind of love from Direwolf that Constructed does, and it makes perfect sense.
Even sadder was lower amount of people that listen to podcasts, or am I wrong about that?
Oh man, that was
No,
brutal.
that was abysmal.
That was brutal.
Yeah, that was like
brutal to see
12,
that.
right?
I forget the
think
number.
that
It was
sounds
less
right.
than 10%.
It was pretty low, which definitely like made us question it, right? It was like, okay, or is it worth doing this? But I don't know about you guys, but lately here I've actually been getting a decent amount of feedback from the community as a whole, appreciating and really learning and finding the value in some form of content that we've produced, whether it's the YouTube videos, the podcast, or just streaming. But definitely the podcast has been picking up. But once again, and you know the rule, right? Every time one person says something to you, you got to probably assume there's about 8 or 9 people that feel the same way but aren't telling you. So I don't know, use that for encouragement, I guess.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I think took me a long time to learn. I think Mark learned that almost immediately. He's creating the podcast because he wants to hang out with me and wants to create something cool. And he wasn't necessarily, he wasn't looking at like how I'd always send him how many people downloaded it this week. He wasn't really checking. It took me a long time to realize that I need to create this for myself because it's something I enjoy doing and not care about anything else.
Yep, I learned that myself. You can even ask Alex and John. I would send them screenshots of like what topics worked, what topics didn't, when posting, when it hit, all that stuff. And finally, I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm enjoying this. Let me just do it, and whatever happens, happens. And it's really put me in a better place as a creator for sure.
Well, and I think that automatically is going to up the quality of what you're creating because now you're more focused on what you're creating rather than the way that what you're creating is being received. And like it's very similar to the way that people kind of hang their self-worth on results. Like we can't hang our self-worth on our audience. Like, Jason and I mentioned that we outlined our metrics of being, we want to be entertaining, we want to be somewhat educational for like geared towards maybe newer-ish players. And every show like that I can go back and listen to, I can find the entertaining bits and I can find the bits that are helpful or that I've learned about the game through working on the show. And so I feel like, I don't know, I'm hitting the metrics, so I'm having a good time. And I think in the long term, that serves the quality of what we're making.
Well said. Man, you guys are great. These are pros right here. Alex, John, you guys taking notes for me? Because I'm going to need them. I
You
dig
guys have
it.
a podcast?
I know you listen to ours because you made it a point to compare our set reviews to both encyclopedias and the Irishman?
Yeah, Martin Scorsese film. Yes.
Yeah, so that's not gonna work right now, Jason. Sorry, I pay attention to your tweets or your Discord or whatever I saw that on. No, wait a minute. No, I think you even said it on your podcast. Oh man.
We have the tape evidence.
Yeah, I gotta admit. I mean, I got you back at some point. I don't remember when I mentioned it, but I was like, well, hopefully by the time this episode comes out, Parmley would be, done with part 5 of our set review.
Yeah, you got me back. You kept me out of a top 64. You kept me out of an ECQ top 64.
Oh, actually, I forgot to tell you guys this, but you probably should just go ahead and stop podcasting because I beat both of you in Constructed back to back a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah. You guys are, I think in the podcast wars, we kind of won.
I don't know about you guys. I'm keeping track. We have a tally going.
Oh man, that sounds scary. I was gonna say I'm already washed up. I was streaming this past weekend and missed lethal by not playing my shadow sigil before I played at any cost on somebody.
No.
And then I lost the game horribly.
Oh, we got a misplay of the week. I feel honored.
Oh yeah.
I want to thank whoever took the video and put it in our Discord.
That was Sakarnan.
All right.
Yeah, he's good people. Really good people. So, moving right along, you guys have already hinted at a team. So, before we jump into the team thing, because very quickly, because that's going to be fantastic. Were you guys always this competitive, or did at some point you make the decision that this is something you want to do and you wanted to pursue it? Because, Jason, I do know that you mentioned on the show that one of your goals was to day 2.
It's actually backwards, but I'd love to hear what Mark would say to this question.
Mark would say that I have always had that leaning, but I've always been kind of isolated in that within the people that I spend time with, there aren't other people that are usually interested in playing at a competitive level. So while like I was playing Magic, none of my friends really played Magic or were interested in playing Magic competitively. And kind of the same with Eternal. And so I kind of always had the aspiration, but I didn't have somebody to work especially closely with that competitive orientation in mind?
Well, I would say that I'm pretty hyper competitive, but I'm also pretty realistic. For example, every time I play the boxer on ladder, I don't expect to win. I don't think I should win. I think he should win that matchup 8 times out of 10. And one of the times I win should be because they got power stuck. And maybe one time out of 10, I make a really good or find a really good line. And the same thing if I come across any of you guys in limited. Every time I played Alex or John or you in draft, I don't think I should win that game. And I understand that. I'm trying to. I want to. It'd be nice so I could, mess up John's tally apparently. But I understand that I'm never going to be able to put in the time, or, I'm probably just not, I don't have the boxer's IQ when it comes to Eternal. But I wouldn't say being competitive is what drove the creation of the team so much as wanting to get better at the game.
Okay. Jason, I can't agree with you more. That's the exact mindset I have. I like to be better. I like to be competitive, but I'm
Oh, do
also a
your own
realist
podcast.
that I am slightly above average. So I feel you there, man. The funny story that you mentioned, the power deprived, I went up against Dr. Pringles in one of the Swiss rounds, and he was on Stone Scar and got stuck on 2 power, and I lost that game. I think he got his 3rd power maybe a turn or 2 before he killed me. In my defense, I will say that he managed to play 1 to 2 spells or cards every turn of that game. But yeah, I get it. I get it, man. Some
Yeah.
people are just on another level.
We are living in parallel universes because I just lost to Gage 902 on Stone Scar. He was stuck on 2 power the entire game. I had as much power as I needed. I got destroyed.
Wow, that's kind of
So
cool. All right, that's a
there we go.
podcast highlight. You guys decided to come up with a team. What was the initial process to that, if you don't mind? Because my next question will be the fact that you guys have seen some serious success as a team, almost considered the team of the year, if you will, if we're going that professional. Just started very recently, and you guys are throwing up some serious numbers, even breaking a couple of, well, not breaking and not solving, but I guess kind of being ahead of the curve on a couple of formats and tournaments. Jason, take lead on that. How did the team come together?
Well, I appreciate you, kind of building that up. I don't know. I don't believe all of that's true. Do I have the button here?
I don't believe that's true. Shut up,
Yeah.
Robot Mark.
I do really appreciate that. I can't take a lot of that credit in terms of the play. Here's what I'll say is that it had always been, I had always thought that hopefully, in the future, the Misplay, because we have the comic as well, created by our friend Todd. So I always thought there could just be more than just the podcast. And so the comic was one, and then the team in the future. And what happened with that was I had been talking about that. I had been mentioning that. And then Jared, so Melanton, he likes me, MLNTN. Um, I told him about it, and all of a sudden, like, he got really excited about it and started working on a website. And I gave him like a mock-up of it. I said, this is what I would want it to look like. And then in like 2 days, like he turned around a website, and I was like, okay, we're doing this. Like, and so his energy to kind of like, get the ball rolling on that, I think carried us early on. And then we got really lucky that some really quality players. I don't want to mention people because I don't want to leave people out at the same time.
I
That
understand.
a couple of people bought in really early who were great players and joined our team when it wasn't anything more than a podcast and a website. From there, it's been built by everybody who joins it. I don't know if people think Mark and I are running the team so much as the team is kind of running the team. I don't know how you think about it that way, Mark, but like I'm not like I'm not, I'm not the team captain when it comes to, team Misplay.
No, and but I mean that's part of the way that you pitch the idea as the whole, like the team, the people on the team who have certain skills that they decide to offer and contribute. Like we have people who are really good at our data tracking. We have people that are really good at bringing up and leading or initiating discussions about decks or structuring the way that we prepare for an event. And so it's kind of the aggregate of all of the skills that everybody brings. And it's a little bit piecemeal, but if everybody contributes like the thing that they're best at, again, you kind of have a quality product just because you have people offering um, the variety of knowledge and skills that they have.
That sounds great, honestly. And I totally, once again, feel where you guys are coming from. If you guys don't mind me dabbling, just broad strokes, what are some of how do you guys kind of play test or discuss things or things, whatever you're comfortable sharing. If not, it's perfectly fine. But do you guys just talk on Discord? Do you set up actual team meetings? Is it just a giant spreadsheet? Things like that.
It's kind of a two-pronged thing. We started, like, part of Jason's initial pitch was making deck decisions based on data that the team collects internally. And so we have a really well set up and established protocol and spreadsheets for tracking our games and our runs and events. And then the other component of that is people bringing in deck lists we have a Throne channel and a Expedition channel, and just having discussions at people's liberty. We don't have structured practice times. Occasionally we'll get together and play test whenever a couple people's schedules overlap. One of the things that I've been most insistent about is everybody participates to the capacity that they're able to. And so there aren't a lot of like rigid expectations about what participation looks like and how participation is for any one person.
Yeah, and I think when you're dealing with a group of people that's borderline international, you can't be too strict on things because there's just someone coming in the middle of the night versus someone in the middle of the day and then someone early morning. It's very difficult for sure. You guys, once again, have seen some serious success as a team and as individual players. What do you think has been the contributing factor to that?
Good lists and really strong players. I think that's really what it comes down to. Jason may disagree or have a similar opinion, but I think I benefit much more from the existence of the team than the majority of the people on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Mark. And, one of the cool things I think for me has been watching your success with the team. And like, when you've made, your top 64s, they've been a part of the team. And I don't think anything's changed about Mark as a player, but when you surround yourself with, other people, it's like putting together like a baseball team. Mike Trout on the Angels is like it's so sad because they're just not winning, right? But if you put Mike Trout on the Yankees, they would destroy everybody. And so surrounding ourselves with essentially the Yankees has made us better players for sure. I've played lists that I've just picked up and have gone 18-10, 19-9. It's like, oh, this list is really good. And that's to the credit of the team who has, spent time curating and creating those decks.
They call it a team for a reason. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I'm glad you guys are seeing such success. It is motivating for me as well as the rest of the community, which is quite important. You guys have, I personally feel from looking from the outside in, I feel like you as a team and as, just a dynamic duo and the podcast and stuff have really had a snowball effect on the community, just gaining more and more momentum, where the things you guys mention on your podcast, the things you say and whatnot makes an impact on a lot of people. So going back to you, Jason, since this was essentially your baby that has come to fruition, how do you feel about that? Where you were starting as a lonely podcast that maybe only 3 people listen to, and now you're one of the faces, quote unquote, of Eternal.
Well, let me jump back because to say it's only my baby, like Mark was there, we had a really good time. Like Mark, you had fun, right? You enjoyed it. It wasn't like the kid is ours. Would you say?
Sure, it can be our baby.
I really appreciate you saying that, Jedi. That feels great. it is really hard for me to see it from where I sit. And I know Mark is, already thinking in his head about, well, Jason's pretty critical about himself and the things that he creates. And it's true. What sort of value we're adding to the community is really hard to see from where I sit. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the things that we're creating. I'm enjoying the team and the comic. But I think we've always struggled with, kind of getting feedback from the community. I'm really happy with, how our Discord is shaped and the people that are in our Discord and are contributing and our patrons as well. But like from like a larger extent in terms of like seeing our impact on the greater community, that's hard for me to see. I wonder what Mark would say.
I'm gonna echo a lot of what Jason said, mostly because I'm not like if I'm like a Twitch personality, I'm much more leaning towards lurking than I am towards engaging with a much larger portion of the community. And so the time that I spend on Discord related to Eternal, I spend in our Discord. So I also I don't have a sense of how much reach we have. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, and I'm just much more focused on the small community that we have in our Discord and engaging in a positive way with our teammates. Streaming has been really interesting. I mostly started that as a thing. I was like, oh, I'm playing anyway. I'm happy to stream it. And I think it's been fun to interact with people. And I've always thought of that as just another platform to promote the show, because that's where I think I'm much more proud of my work on the show than I am of my work as a streamer. But I will say it's the like small connections that I found to be the most interesting, where people have friended me in game after we run into each other and they're like, oh, hey, I listened to the show. Like, I really enjoy that. And for me, that's enough. So like I said, I don't have a finger on the pulse of the larger ecosystem of the Eternal community. I'm just much more focused on the small scale local level that we're working on right now.
That is such a great feeling, though. I 100% agree with you. I remember the podcast you guys did where you talked about people friending you after to essentially yell at you for bad luck or good luck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And honestly, I friend pretty much everybody, because I think at this point, 1 out of every 17 people that friend me have something bad to say, and everyone else just wants to say something like, hey, thanks for the YouTube videos, thanks for the podcast, I love it, etc. Keep up the good work. And that is so rewarding that it doesn't matter if they smashed me or if I'm on a losing streak or I've bounced back from 99 to 80 to 99 to 80 on getting into masters. It all gets washed away when someone tells you that, and it really motivates you to keep going. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna do an extra video this week. So I completely understand. I think part of the issue you guys are having is something that I experience as well, is just that sometimes you're in the center of it all. So you're so busy trying to make everything happen and keep the world turning that you don't notice how much you're actually doing to make that happen. And so it's understandable, but when people are on the outside looking in, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Jason, what's your economy in your account right now?
Well, it's interesting you ask me that question, because I'm about to start free to play. I'm gonna track for the podcast how much you're actually able to play and compete without putting in any money, and half for me, half to save some money, and then half for the podcast. So what's in my account right now? I'm actually trying to zero out everything. So I'm like drafting every time I get to 5K. I'm crafting expedition cards, just so I can get down to 0 when I start this.
Okay.
Don't forget to track the time. I don't know if this is relevant to anything, but track the amount of time that you're playing so that you have like a time to resources accumulated.
I do agree with Mark, though. I think 100% you have to keep track of time, because honestly, that is one of the reasons that I spend money in this game. Obviously, I want to support the content or the creation of it, because I enjoy this game, so I don't mind. But I tried one time to pay gold for a competitive event and thought it was an absurd amount. Granted, I like to draft, so that might be why I thought it was an absurd amount, because I was like, this is 7 drafts for a tournament that I might go, 07 drop. Like, get out of here. Last things I wanted to ask about the podcast is So, what made you guys start plugging in future Hall of Famer Hunter Pence? And then, what was your reaction when you actually realized that it was going to happen? And yeah, I'll just leave that 2-part question there. Who wants to take this one?
That was a strategy from the beginning. I think it's loosely based on what Jimmy Kimmel does with Matt Damon, where he's like, "Oh, I just ran out of time," and sorry, Matt Damon, which is totally obviously it's scripted, and so is the Hunter Pence thing. I tried to think of somebody like who it would be like a long shot goal, but also has like a loose connection to Magic and Eternal. Well, I wouldn't even say his connection's loose to Magic, but it's loose to Eternal. And it's also somebody like I really enjoy. There's not many celebrities that like I would ever, I don't know, like follow. I don't follow anybody on Instagram. I don't even have an Instagram, but like I'm not that into celebrity culture. But Hunter Pence is just like really cool dude, and he played baseball in San Francisco, and we live in San Francisco, so it all kind of made sense. And so just from the get go, we just started saying that, and it became a thing. And what happened was I started tweeting at Hunter Pence. I started a tweet. I forget the verbiage, but it was like, "This is my second weekly tweet to invite Hunter Pence on our Eternal Game podcast." And so I did that for like I think it was like the 7th or 8th week. He responded on Twitter and said, "Well, email this person." And so the email was to his business manager. And so I started talking to his business manager, and she's like, "No, this sounds really cool." And I'm like, "What, really?" So we went back and forth for about a month trying to line it up and find a date that worked. And oh my God, I was a nervous wreck that whole week that I knew I was going to be talking to Hunter Pence. And did a ton of prep, like listened to every podcast he had ever been on, and found some little nuggets I could use. And when he called the first time, we had just gotten our board and we're just getting it like all up and running. And the first time he called, he couldn't hear us. And it was like, "Oh my God, are we gonna lose this?" But we figured out the tech pretty quick. And I was a nervous wreck the entire interview. But it just basically came from like, I don't know, like it was a little bit of a marketing idea for us. And we just stuck with it.
Dreams can happen.
Mark, anything from your perspective? Because I know that was something that I was driving.
Not a whole lot. I mean, that was a really fun thing. The other thing about choosing him was that he played Magic. Like he's an avid gamer himself. And I think part of the appeal of Jason's pitch to his business manager was we're not going to talk about baseball. Like we're going to talk about games.
Yeah, this is right
Um,
when he was like, it wasn't sure if he was gonna sign with the Rangers or he was in free agency. They had said like, "Don't talk about baseball." Like, we're not gonna talk about baseball. That's not what we're interested in. People want to talk about baseball, do it on a baseball podcast.
That's super neat. How are your prospects for season 2's special guest, current Hall of Famer LSV?
Well, I would say Mark has been dropping the ball lately, but
you're not wrong. I think we've done 2 or 3 shows with Soap Yellow. And the first 2 shows I forgot to put in the bit. So we're a little bit behind. So we have to rebuild our momentum for that.
You can take over the flame of the weekly tweets out to LSV then.
yeah,
Right.
LSP seemed like he'd be obviously he knows a little bit about Eternal, but would just be a really great guest for anyone in our community. So I figured that was kind of we've had Hunter Pence on the show. Come on, LSV.
I mean, I
Right.
blame Sunnyvale. He said he was going to give us LSV's email address and still hasn't.
Yeah, let's blame Sunnyvale.
For the record, I will say, on just a more personal note, I think it's super cool that the developers play on ladder and both ranked and or draft and constructed, because obviously they have their own servers to play test things with. So the fact that they jump on, I think is super cool. It at least shows to a certain extent that they enjoy the game they make.
I've appreciated their uptick in initiative of having developers streaming the game also.
I concur, very much so. They've even inspired a couple of decks in the meta. That one Reap abusive deck that was going on from BK. That deck, I've seen it on ladder a couple times. So there's definitely some stuff and things going on. All right, guys, that is going to do it. Last thing, any closing statements from you guys as far as what you have planned in the future or anything you would like to plug before I thank you guys for being on the show?
No, just thanks for having us. We appreciate you sharing your platform with us. I mean, we can go back and forth as much as you want about who has a larger audience, but I'm pretty sure that our audience is small. So getting the signal boost is really a really kind gesture from you. And yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah, Jedi, as much as we super appreciate it. Put us up on a pedestal sometimes. The things that you guys are doing here are pretty exceptional. Especially your charity tournaments, and the last one was phenomenal. And like, I think in a lot of ways, Mark and I are striving towards that, finding a way to kind of give back to the community. And you guys here at Eternal Journey have done that through your daily content, but also like those big tournaments have been super awesome and not only beneficial for our community, but for Child's Play as well. So thank you guys so much for having us on your show. And we're going to keep trying to be like you.
Thanks to a certain survey that went out earlier, I believe that it is a 20/80 split for limited versus constructed. So I would probably say that there's more people listening to your podcast, just saying. And then the piggyback on your thing about the charity tournament, you can catch an article version breaking down the tournament thanks to our very own Jason at themisplay.com. And then it was super cool of Direwolf Digital to not only provide prize support for the tournament, but also match our contribution. So I thought that was super cool of them and completely unsolicited from us.
Yeah, totally.
All right, that's going to do it. Jason, Mark, thank you guys so much for being on the show. I consider you guys my long distance friends. I really do appreciate you guys. I listen to you all the time. It's been an honor. I'm glad we finally got to connect, get you guys on the show. Probably look at potentially getting you guys on the show in the future, maybe as a duo, maybe separately to talk about individual topics. You've done a great job on your streams and whatnot, Mark, so keep it up, man. You've guested on other podcasts, have been a very good representation. Jason, your drive is inspirational and definitely makes the community a better place. So thank you guys both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Guys, check them out at the Misplay wherever you get your podcast at.
Thank you. Mark, you see what I did? I tried to leave the last word as like us giving him a compliment, and then he turns it around and gives us a compliment on the way out. I found a way. Jedi, I just want to let you know that you are awesome and I love your show.
For what's the play this week, there is none. I won't lie to you guys. I'll be completely transparent. I probably had a handful of interesting plays over the week, but I completely forgot to screenshot them because they were interactive and whatnot. So I do apologize. But as to this card, absolutely just flabbergasting me this week, we will say pro tip mentoring Lumbering Gruon. Lumbering Gruon is the 6/7 that whenever it blocks a unit, it becomes stunned. So John, since you are essentially our rules lawyer here, can you break down what interactions and how that influences attacking, blocking, not surge, imbue, and even what really surprised me was killer.
All right, so Lumbering Gruon is a weird card, and it's one that I've had in my pool and draft before, and I don't think I've ever actually played it. Maybe the first time I played it when I didn't read it all the way and didn't quite realize what it was going to be up to, because it's a weird one.
Yeah, that's my thing. I never played it either. Literally, I can't remember ever having it in a deck.
Yeah, and I think for most people, the first time they play it, it doesn't really do what they expect. So I get that. It seems like it's an easy to cast 6-drop with good stats. So there's got to be something going on here. So the thing with blocking a unit, it stuns Lumbering Gruon. So it just takes him out of combat. So it's good against things like deadly units, right? Because he can block a deadly unit without dying. The thing is, though, is when you block something and are stunned, you're out of combat for 2 turns, right? So what do you then want to like chain Gruons on your board, like alternate Gruon blocks? Like it's all just too much for me personally, like to actively be wanting to do this. But that is a thing you can do. Obviously, like if it's like it's a kind of a unique effect. So it interacts with different battle skills and things like that differently. Like if you're trying to block something with overwhelm and you get stunned out of combat, all that overwhelm is coming through, right? For example, so like not good there. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. It's funky. Like it's really hard to make good use of this, I think. Like yeah, it's a good blocker, but like a 6/7 is already a good blocker. So except that like when you're not stunning it out of combat, you get to block every turn instead of every other turn. So like in my mind, this is like all downside, basically except for against deadly. So I guess in a format where the meta pick is like
And killer.
mono deadly, then you'd actively want these lumbering Gruons. But other than that, I don't know.
All right, that's your pro tip for today to cover for our what's the play. That being said, if you guys ever have what's the plays that you think were very interesting, have multiple decision trees, feel free to screenshot it and send it to us via the Discord, and or just message me on any of the different platforms you listen to this podcast on, and we'd love to discuss it on the show, potentially the following week.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to talk about someone else's scenario. If they like think that there's one great play and like want to see our opinions and we come up with something totally different, that'd be really interesting. Like I would love to see that. Please do.
Yep, I dig it as well. All right, that's going to take us into our constructed corner, which before we break down a deck brought to us by Kalibovich, I saw this on YouTube that he posted, and I think it's super interesting. It's something I actually tried to do a long time ago, but went the shadow route and it didn't quite work out. And that was using obviously from the vault. But first, we want to talk. There were 2 pseudo big nerfs that are still somewhat controversial in constructed. So just to keep you guys up to date, they did a nerf to the most recent Tellet and the most recent Igen. The adjustments, Tellet essentially used to do a -1 permanently for every surge trigger to all the so surge give a -1/-0 to all your opponent's units permanently. They nerfed it to essentially the -1 only happens for the turn, but it's still to all the opponent's units, similar to the original Tellet. And then Igen was adjusted to much how we talked about in the set review, where we weren't sure if she countered herself or not. She essentially did. So if you played your influence correctly and managed to get to 6 justice influence before you played Igen, it would actually see herself and give herself the weapon, making her a 7/7 for 3. They nerfed it to where now it does not count herself. John, do you want to go ahead and show the applications of this both in constructed and limited? Or actually, John, do constructed, and then Alex, you can do limited.
Sure. Yeah, I mean these are both rares, so these are cards that I've played and seen played in limited multiple times already, so it definitely matters. For constructed, like I think Tellet was just a great justice card, and I think now it's basically only playable if you're very much going for an armory strategy. The furthest turn like nerf to the opposing units, that's a really big hit to the playability of this card in general. So I've already dusted all of my Tellets that I crafted for maximum refund today. And I think the hit to Igen is less of a strict nerf, because it kind of worked both ways, right? Like there was times where you loved to just play this 3-drop and have it be a 7/7. And that was exactly what you wanted, and you didn't care maybe what was going to happen on future turns or anything like that. And you were just happy playing a 7/7 for 3 because it was an efficient play, and maybe you were just going to win the game next turn attack. But like now you can like actually the turn you play Igen, if she's already active, you can purposefully give that weapon to a different unit, right? So like before you didn't have any say. Like if Aijin was active when you played her, boom, like she got the weapon and you didn't have a chance to then give it to a different unit that turn. So like it's not like the effect on her is not a strict nerf is what I'm trying to say. And I think she's still very playable. And like this allows possibly even for some lines that are better now than they would have been yesterday. So I think that's pretty interesting. What about for draft, Alex?
For draft, I think Tell It is now like a fair card. I had really bad experiences with Tell It in a couple of drafts in a row. And basically, you just can't come back from just a couple triggers. Your opponent swings into your weak board and it's game over. Now they can, it's not like the cumulative negative just stays on the unit, so you have a fighting chance against it. So I like that nerf, and plus it was just in every single deck and every single expedition and throne deck. It was just annoying. The other card, I like what John said about it. It's like it is a nerf. It is a nerf, but it's like it kind of added play decisions with her now instead of just like, yeah, here's my 7/7. Now it's like, okay, what unit do I want to buff, first? And a lot of times she would come out and you need to get the justice from her anyways, even to get it to work. So I don't mind that one as well. I like that nerf. I think it's a good nerf, and the other one was necessary. But yeah, they're it's still a good limited card. Don't pass it. It's just not as bonkers as it was.
All right, good. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have an event coming up this weekend. So this should be coming out either Thursday or Friday. So you guys should have it before the event. This is one of the Expedition Summer Challenge. The Expedition Summer Challenge takes place this weekend from July 31st to August 2nd. Here are the details. The format is Expedition. First round of the event runs from 10 Friday the 31st to 1600 Saturday, August 1st. During that time, players will play 28 games, win or lose, with a single deck and increasing rewards for their wins. Event entry costs 900 gems or 1100 gold. After the first round is complete, the top 64 players with the best leaderboard scores will be invited to the finals, which take place the following day. Finalists will receive an in-game notification, so keep an eye out. Top 64 will use their same deck to fight through the single elimination bracket. Expedition Summer Challenge Finals start sharply at 11 Mountain on Sunday, August 2nd. Finalists will receive an automated invite to join their match, so be online and logged in before then. So we'll keep you up to date when the following one is. It's on here, but I don't want to confuse you guys. So once again, this weekend, July 31st to August 2nd, is the Expedition Summer Challenge. So you guys can check that out. I don't think they stream these, if I remember correctly, John, right?
I think they may have streamed the last one. I don't remember for sure, but I know they definitely announced that these were not going to be broadcasted.
Okay, yeah. Yep, I'm not seeing anything here about showing it on Twitch. So, real quick, one last thing. Event runs. The minimum, if you go 1 loss or 0-1, it's 10 packs of Argent Depths, bare minimum. The max you can get in the Swiss for 15 plus wins, you get 15 packs, 2 premium rares, and 5 QCP points. And then the leaderboard rewards, first place is going to get 10 packs, 2 diamond chests, and 75 QCP, obviously for winning the whole thing. For making day 2, you get 3 packs of Argent Depths plus 15 QCP. So if that's something you guys want to do, whether you like to just compete or maybe start collecting points or take the whole thing down, definitely consider that event this weekend. All right, that leads us into Kaleibovic's Rebuild the Vault deck. You can find the links in the show notes down below, both to the Eternal Warcry and deck list, as well as the YouTube video. The deck consists of 3 Pause for Reflection, 4 Arcanum Hourglass, 4 Kairos Choice, 4 Learned Herbalist, 4 East Annex Smuggler, 4 Endra Champion of Shavka, 4 Jek Mercenary Hunter, 4 Rebuild, 4 Unlock the Vault, 4 Wrath of Kaifas, 3 Draco Shaman Circlet, 4 Pit of Lanakta, 4 Shavka's Embrace, 6 Fire Sigil, 4 Time Sigil, 1 Combre Vow, 4 Crest of Impulse, 4 Praxis Vow, 4 Seat of Impulse, 2 Stone Scar Vow, and then a market consisting of Flame Blast, Forgotten Find, Begin Anew, Kalos Persuader, and Sabretooth Pride Leader. Yeah, this was a deck I tried to play around with back when Unlock the Vault first came out. Essentially, the key card is a 6-cost Praxis Slow Spell. Play a relic weapon, a non-relic weapon, or I'm sorry, a non-weapon relic, and a non-relic weapon. Wait, what? Hold on, sorry. Play a relic weapon, play a relic, and play a weapon from your void. So essentially, you can get a 3-for-1 on this from the void. And the way this is working essentially is you're discarding cards from your hand using the Learned Herbalist's effect to get the secret pages, which will ramp you. You have Arcanum Hourglass that lets you play power from your void, so you don't mind discarding power. And or obviously the Unlock a Vault will allow you to discard your circlets and your Pit of Lanektas to get them back at a discount. Is the main synergy of the deck, with of course some Endra and Jek combo there to essentially kind of stem up the board and deal some damage. And then Rebuild is a new card from the latest set. This is 3 power quad time Revenge. You gain 1 health for each of your units. You get 1+1 power this turn for each of your fire influence. So another essential means to ramp. The real payoff is obviously when you get it off the Revenge, because then you're just getting sheer upside on it versus having to pay 3 to make it happen. There is some resilience to the deck. I do actually like Begin Anew as well. I'm actually running it 2 of in my mono fire deck. I think it's pretty solid. The deck's a lot of fun. It is pricey. I will say this is nowhere near a budget deck. There are obviously campaign cards in it, and then Shiftstone is, or correction, Eternal Warcry is saying that it is practically 70,000 Shiftstone. So this deck is not cheap, but it is super fun to play. I actually, Hats on Lamps was playing this deck on ladder, as he was my gatekeeper to Masters this month. But I took it down, thankfully. A well-timed Marley took down the early pit, and he was not able to recover. But the deck is super fun. I have only seen it play, obviously, through the YouTube video and Hats on Lamps, but the deck does seem very interesting. So you have some Shiftstone to burn, or you have some of these cards. I definitely encourage you to take a look at it. But once again, the video is in the link down below, where you can see Caleb break it down and in depth, as well as show you the gameplay. John, you had mentioned you saw him build the deck?
Yeah, I saw him working on it on stream. Just another thing, gameplay wise, to note, Jek is your other way to feed your void with, it's your other discard outlet.
Yep, good call.
With Herbalist.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very good point. Very good point. All right, but that's going to do it for Constructed Corner, which means we're at the end of the show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, shout out to the Misplay, Jason and Mark, for being on the show. Really do appreciate them having it on, or taking the time to be on the show. Absolute delight. Enjoyed the interview quite a bit. You can catch us streaming live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I said my old one. That's funny. Every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. Or offline on EternalJourney on the YouTube search engine. And of course, feel free to join the Discord, man. It's been, our Discord's popping off. I can't talk enough about the goodness that we're having on there, with the team chats, with co-op drafting, with just discussions about constructed, sealed decks, and all that good stuff. It's great. I'm enjoying it. John and Alex are quite active on it as well. So I do encourage you guys, if you want to get some more inside scoop or one-on-one attention on the Discord, or 1-on-30, all right, when everyone chips in, I definitely encourage you to join our Discord. It's a fantastic thing and completely free. But that's going to do it. Of course, once again, John, Alex, thank you guys both for being on the show. Really do appreciate it. Thank you, the listener, for listening to the show. This is the reason why we do it. I mean, we enjoy it. We enjoy kicking it with our friends. But, of course, the fact that you guys are consuming it also makes it a lot more fun for us. And if we encourage you to draft, that means that our queue times are less. So there's a selfish part in there for us as well.
You're not wrong.
That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.
Bye.
Good luck in your draft queues, everyone.